In this video, I'll show you what I mean when I say that you should import models to Rhino when specificity matters. Here is the fence area. It's a dog park with a fence all the way around, and these are placeholder tree grates that I want to replace with items that have more detail. You can't manipulate models in Lumion. You can scale them uniformly up and down and place them on surfaces or node points, but if you really need something to snap into a certain location or alter it to fit your design, then that's the right time to import that model into Rhino and set it up there. Let's do these tree grates first. I'll go to Import, then navigate to my model and accept the default settings. Everything from SketchUp comes in as a mesh, which is usually fine, but from time to time you might need to convert those to NURBS surfaces. We'll talk about that later in this video. In this case, the model is fine just the way it is, and I'm going to match it up to one of these tree grate locations and scale it so that it fits. This series is called Precision Modeling, but we only need as much precision as we're going to notice in our rendered views. I always make sure that my elements are just precise enough to add detail to my view, but I try not to get too sucked into the nitty-gritty details. When it comes to 3D modeling, I'm very much someone who asks myself, is something good enough the way it is? I would recommend you take this approach as well, or you could get bogged down with too many details. We're not making a construction set, we're making a visualization. Notice that the imported model came in on layer 0. While normally you would want to break down models into their material components and into separate layers for rendering, in this case, the texture maps are automatically applied from the SketchUp file, so we don't need to worry about changing the name or moving it to another layer. That goes for pretty much all components that you bring in from SketchUp. Just remember that your imported models will be on layer 0. If we take a look at rendered view, we can see a preview of the materiality, and we can customize this in Lumion later, so there's no need to change anything about that within Rhino. I'm going to reuse this old placeholder tree grate and repurpose it as a material surface for a ground or dirt material later, so I'm just going to move this to the earth layer that I have set up. This way, when I import it to Lumion later, I can apply a dirt material under the grate and place the tree on a surface so that it looks more realistic. You'll get better at identifying where details like this matter as you practice. And now I'm just going to copy this as a group and copy it over into all of the other tree grate locations. So the fence component is next, and this is a little bit more difficult and is going to require more alteration. There are different sizes of panels within this fence to deal with, and I have to adjust the fence to the right width and height. I'm going to do a really fast-forwarded workflow for you to watch as a separate video, but for this video I'm going to give you a really basic rundown of how I adjusted this element. So first I am going to draw a reference rectangle and bring it over to my fence component. I'll match up the fence elements as best I can with the rectangle and then assemble the various pieces, the brackets, the post, and the fence. I'll convert the meshes into NURBS surfaces using the command mesh to NURB. Then I'll delete the old mesh so I just have poly surfaces left. We do this when we need to edit meshes because Rhino is not super good at editing meshes, it's better at editing poly surfaces. So because these models are coming in as meshes from SketchUp, if we're going to adjust them, and by that I mean splitting them or any other destructive alterations, then we'll first want to turn them into poly surfaces. So I'll create a splitting extrusion here to trim the pieces that we don't need, and then group the object back together. Then I can use the reference rectangle to put the fence element into the first panel, and from there I use array linear to copy it to the other fence panels. I'll do this for all of the section that will be visible in my view, but I'm not going to try to do all of those custom little panels here or copy the fence all the way around. This is called strategic targeted modeling. Don't spend any time on parts of the model that are not going to be visible in your view. It's too easy to get sucked into details that don't matter.